In a dark and remote village, hidden in a dense forest, lived twin brothers Hikaru and Kei. Since childhood, they were attracted by one dark legend, passed down from generation to generation. The legend said that deep in the forest there was an abandoned estate, inhabited by an ancient spirit, cursing everyone who dared to enter. One day, on a full moon, the brothers decided to test the truth of the legend. They took lanterns with them and went into the forest. The fog creeping along the ground made the path even more ominous, and the crunch of branches underfoot filled their hearts with fear. Finally, through the dense foliage, they saw an abandoned estate. The estate stood in complete desolation, the windows were broken, the doors creaked in the wind, and the smell of old age and decay hung in the air. Hikaru and Kei decided to go inside. It was dark and cold inside, it seemed that the walls were saturated with fear and pain. Suddenly, they heard a quiet whisper coming from the depths of the corridor. The brothers' hearts sank, but curiosity got the better of them, and they headed towards the sound. At the end of the corridor, they found a door behind which, according to legend, a cursed soul lived. Hikaru carefully opened the door, and they saw an old, dusty room. In the center of the room stood a mirror, in which something resembling a human figure was reflected. The brothers came closer and saw a woman with long black hair and empty, lifeless eyes in the mirror. Suddenly, the mirror began to crack, and the woman in it moved. She stretched her hands through the cracked surface, trying to grab the brothers. Kei stepped back, but Hikaru was paralyzed with terror. The woman grabbed him and began to pull him into the mirror. Kei, gathering all his courage, grabbed his brother's hand and tried to pull him out, but the woman's strength was too great. "Run, Kei!" Hikaru shouted before disappearing into the mirror. Kei, overcome with horror and despair, broke free and ran away from the mansion. He ran without looking back until he returned to the village. Since then, Kei lived with guilt and fear. Every night he had a nightmare. He saw Hikaru trapped in the mirror and the woman standing next to him, with her sinister grin. Kei tried to forget what happened, but the spirit of the mansion did not let him go. The legend of the cursed mansion lived in his heart, and the image of his brother, pulled into the mirror, haunted him for the rest of his days. And now, on a full moon, if you listen closely, you can hear a quiet whisper from the depths of the forest, calling new victims to the cursed mansion, where Hikaru remained forever a prisoner of the sinister spirit. Several years had passed since Hikaru had disappeared into the mirror, and Kei had become a hermit. His nightmares were getting worse, and he felt like he was losing his mind. One day, a strange wanderer, dressed in old clothes and with his face hidden by a hood, approached the village. He had heard local tales of Kei and his tragic fate, and decided to find out more. The wanderer found Kei in his house on the outskirts of the village. The old man entered with a reserved expression and offered his help. Kei, exhausted by fear and despair, agreed to listen to him. "My name is Reiji," the wanderer said. "I am a paranormal investigator, and I know about the curse of this estate. I believe I can help you bring your brother back." Kei, overjoyed by the unexpected hope, decided to go back into the forest with Reiji. They gathered all the necessary equipment, amulets, candles, sacred texts, and a mirror covered in runes. On the night of the full moon, they entered the forest. The path to the manor was the same as many years ago, but now Kei felt more confident around Reiji. As they approached the manor, the atmosphere became even more ominous, and fog enveloped them like ghostly hands. Reiji placed candles and amulets around the mirror in the room where Hikaru was trapped. He began chanting, calling on the forces of light to banish the dark spirit. The mirror began to vibrate, and cracks in its surface began to glow with a bright light. The woman with long black hair appeared from the mirror again, but now she looked even more furious. She screamed and tried to break through the barrier Reiji had created. At that moment, Kei saw Hikaru standing behind the woman, his face full of pain and fear. "Hikaru!" Kei shouted, trying to break through to his brother. Reiji intensified his spells, and the light around the mirror became even brighter. The woman began to fade, her screams fading, and finally, she completely dissolved into thin air. Hikaru, weakened and trembling, took a step forward and stepped out of the mirror. Kei rushed to his brother, hugging him. They both cried with relief and joy. Reiji gathered his things and looked at the brothers with a smile. "The curse is broken," he said. "Now you are free." The brothers returned to the village, and life gradually began to improve. Hikaru spent a long time recovering from the horror he had experienced, but Kei's support and Reiji's help helped him overcome all the difficulties. The cursed manor remained standing in the forest, but now it was empty, without the sinister spirit. The legend of the brothers who defeated the ancient evil became a new story in the village, and many generations remembered how love and courage overcame the darkness.